Welcome to the show. I'm Jamie Eisenberg. That's Dave Richard. That's Heath Cummings. Got a fun fantasy football today for you. Let's start with the headlines that we're keeping an eye on here. And again, lots of injuries to certain backfields. The Steelers' backfield we're certainly going to be having all eyes on when it comes to Najee Harris. Is he in? Is he out? And what does that mean? Because Jaylen Warren has been cleared to play. Christian McCaffrey missed practice on Wednesday. Hopefully he'll be out there for the big game against the Dolphins. Michael Carter missed practice on Wednesday. We'll see what that means for Zonovan Knight and possibly Ty Johnson as well. Josh Jacobs was limited on Wednesday. It was not a full practice, so we'll see what happens there with the Raiders' backfield. Could be good for Zamir White. Travis Etienne limited but expected to play. Lamar Jackson still dealing with some injuries. This time it's a quad injury that forced him to be limited in practice on Wednesday. All right, let's get to some of the stories here. We'll start with the Steelers' backfield. So Najee Harris did not practice, dealing with the oblique injury. Jaylen Warren, who did not play in the game against the Colts because he was dealing with a hamstring injury, cleared to play. He's good to go. Benny Snell, we know, was coming off a good performance, stepping in for Najee Harris and Jaylen Warren. So where are we at, guys, with the Steelers' backfield? Who's your favorite Pittsburgh running back for Week 13?
What's the scoring? If it's full PPR, half PPR, I'm going to lean toward Jaylen Warren. I like what he might be able to do. He was the more efficient running back earlier this year when Najee Harris was playing. He's certainly going to be more efficient than with Benny Snell. But if it's non-PPR, those catches don't count. I think I'll give the nod to Snell because I think he's got a better chance to score a touchdown.
I'll go with Warren in all formats,
Same.
but I do think that they're not too far from each other in terms of flex potential. The real question is how many touches do they want to give Jaylen Warren? He doesn't have a game with more than 12 this season, hasn't had double-digit carries ever in a game. I do think Benny Snell could see as much as half of the rush attempts. Warren's going to dominate passing downs, though. That's where you've really made hay against this Falcons defense. I think he could creep into the RB2 discussion.
Yeah, I have no interest in Benny Snell, to be honest with you. I think it's going to be all Jaylen Warren. You go back to what happened before he had the hamstring injury. It was going to be him taking work away from Najee Harris, and everything that I've read says the Steelers want to see what they can get out of Jaylen Warren as a starter, just to see what happens in case Najee Harris may miss some time. Again, it's not considered a serious injury, so I'm all in on Jaylen Warren. I think he's got top 20 upside this week against the Falcons defense that has allowed 18 or more PPR points to 6 straight running backs. It's a great situation to whoever gets the work there. For me, I'm going to go with Warren. The 49ers backfield is a little bit concerning right now because Christian McCaffrey missing practice on Wednesday. He is expected to play. You also have Deebo Samuel dealing with the quad injury. He's expected to play as well. He was limited. So Heath, makes sense of the backups because we got different reports. It could be Jordan Mason, who was the next guy up after Elijah Mitchell went down. They also have Tyrion Davis-Price, who early in the season was their, de facto number 2 guy behind Mitchell. And then Tevin Coleman, who's a favorite of Kyle Shanahan. So who's the second best guy? Who should we be picking up off waivers just in case McCaffrey doesn't go?
I think the one that I would want to pick up the most is Davis-Price because I could see the biggest role for him alongside Christian McCaffrey. If McCaffrey misses time, I think it's going to be a complete mess with Coleman, TDP, and Jordan Mason getting involved. It seems like Jordan Mason they like to have when they don't think they're going to need a guy to run the ball, and he can play on special teams for them. So I do think he has the least upside of these three. Tevin Coleman, if they have an opening in the passing backs role, would be the guy.
I think he hasn't opened anywhere. I mean,
Right.
It just feels like he's the new cockroach. He just won't go away. And Kyle Shanahan brings him back for a reason. Break glass in case of emergency type of guy, and they might be in an emergency situation. So we'll see. I don't think you need to spend a lot of fab if they're still out there, any of these 3 guys. But I know we said Jordan Mason probably on Tuesday might have been the most likely candidate with Tyrion Davis-Price, but it could be Tevin Coleman. That's what the Athletic suggests. So just keep that in mind, but we hope to have Christian McCaffrey out there in full at some point before Sunday. We have the Jets backfield situation that's certainly worth keeping an eye on. Michael Carter did not practice dealing with the ankle injury. That was on Wednesday. And we saw I did not finish the game on Sunday in Week 12, and it was Zonovan Knight and Ty Johnson stepping in, James Robinson with the healthy scratch. So going into Week 13, tough matchup against Minnesota. The best Jets running back this week will be?
Will be Zonovan Bam Knight. First of all, you got to start anybody whose nickname is Bam. That's awesome. But more importantly, he played nearly 70% of the snaps once Michael Carter left last week. He's the guy that they're going to give an opportunity to. He's going to play in short yardage situations. He did that on 2 of 3 snaps last week when Carter was on the field. He's also going to play almost every first and second down. He won't play any third downs. That's going to be Ty Johnson territory, but he'll still continue to catch passes. That's what Mike White does. He checks down to his running backs. I expect Zonovan Knight to be a number 2 fantasy running back this week.
Yeah, we'll see what happens in terms of the split when there may be chasing points. I wonder how much of a role Ty Johnson might have. They had the luxury of just a big lead against the Bears, and so they wanted to see what he had to offer. Clearly, he's the one you should be targeting. I just would not rule out Ty Johnson having a bigger role. He was the one playing on third downs, and then we'll see what happens with James Robinson. At this point, Robinson, you have to figure he's 3rd at best, maybe 4th if Carter does play, but as of now, we're not expecting to see Carter out there. So if Zonovan Knight's still on your waiver wire, go pick him up. In your deeper league, go pick up Ty Johnson as well. Heath, the Raiders situation is one that we are obviously going to keep an eye on. probably more so today and tomorrow because the Raiders had a walkthrough yesterday. They listed Josh Jacobs as limited. We don't know what that means, though, because we got the report that he has this calf problem. It's going to probably keep him out of practice for the majority of the week. He said he expects to play, so that's obviously the good sign. But if he does not go, great matchup we know against the Chargers.
Right.
Zamir White, Amir Abdullah, what's the breakdown?
I would rather play Zamir White. I wouldn't be as excited about him, though, just because I don't know what he's going to do anything at all in the passing game, and I do think it could even be a three-headed monster for the Raiders. I really hope we get Josh Jacobs being the number one overall running back again this week. Zamir White should 100% be rostered, and if you need to use him as a flex this week, if Josh Jacobs is out, that would be fine. He would not be a top 24 running back for me, but if Josh Jacobs, if his injury lingers and we find out that Zamir White can handle a big load, he could have a big impact in the fantasy playoffs if the Raiders are out of it and they decide to shut Jacobs down.
And Jacobs might decide to shut himself down because he's heading into free agency. All right, so we got these three scenarios at play here with the Jets, with the Steelers, and potentially the Raiders. Rank the replacement options. I'll start with you first. If Warren is the guy for Pittsburgh, Knight is the guy for the Jets, and Zamir White is the guy for the Raiders, how do you rank them?
I would go Knight, Warren, White would be my top three.
White would be number one with a bullet if he's going to be the main guy for the Raiders. I would absolutely put him one. Knight would be two.
I would go Warren, White, Knight. I can't get past that Falcons matchup. It's just too much of a dream scenario. And the Steelers, you know, that they tend to lean on one guy. So I'll lean toward Warren. But I do agree, White is in a great spot if in fact he is going to be the guy. I can't get away from Amir Abdullah being a big part of it just because he's been a big part of it now and probably will.
Do you think Warren will be an every down back?
I think he's going to get 80%. I think he's getting 80% of the touches.
I'd be stunned if he got that many.
I'd
I'd be stunned if Zamir had 80% too.
See, that's the one I think. It would not be surprising if they go Abdullah as more of the lead guy. They throw on first down to their running backs. You know, it's not the situation where they could also be chasing points. I can't see the Steelers really getting behind against the Falcons to a significant point where Jalen Warren's going to have a big role in the passing game too. So to me, Jalen Warren is the most upside of the group. For the Jaguars, we got Travis Etienne limited. Their offense coordinator said today he wants to play. Everything's pointing toward him playing, but just in case he's out, Michael Hasty, where does he factor into all this?
I don't know if he would be the only guy in that backfield, but I would be encouraged to use Hasty if there is no Travis Etienne. We saw what he was able to do in the passing game last week. Certainly can make plays downfield. Great wheel route and a great throw by Trevor Lawrence, I might add. And they're taking on the Lions. It's a great matchup. Will he be the only guy? They got Darrell Henderson off the waiver wire, the NFL waiver wire from the Rams, so he could end up being a factor in their run game as well. It could be a little bit messy. Where would he rank with those other players? He'd be a number 2 running back if there was no Travis Etienne.
You say good matchup. Obviously, it has not been the case because the Lions have been fantastic for basically the last month, but you're still very high on Travis Etienne.
It's a weird situation because they're giving up a ton of points. They've given up touchdowns to backup running backs, but we never had the guy who gets the yards also score the touchdowns. They have not allowed a running back since week 7 to score double-digit PPR fantasy points. I would anticipate if Travis Etienne is 100%, he's going to be the first to do that in a long time.
He should be great on the track. And so, again, you know, when you see rankings like that, you're obviously starting Travis Etienne unless you are just absolutely loaded, but I do think you got to give the Lions a little bit of credit for the run defense. It certainly flipped itself after what it was early in the season when it was an absolute disaster. All right, the other running back injuries that we're looking at here, there is a lengthy injury board. Again, a lot of these we've already covered, so you don't have to necessarily worry about McCaffrey, and we have to worry about them, but you don't have to get more in depth on a lot of these guys. Cam Akers, again, dealing with an illness, so it could be a good situation once again for Kyron Williams if he does get that opportunity to get even more of a lead role. I hope Jarrett McKinnon plays because it can absolutely be a fantastic game for him in what should be a shootout between the Chiefs and the Bengals. We'll get more into that matchup on Sunday when we have our guy Tom Spencer joining us on Fantasy Football Today. Joe Mixon should be good to go. That's a great sign for him as long as he clears the concussion protocol. Aaron Jones should be fine. A.J. Dillon should be fine. Antonio Gibson, if he is limited even more, could be a good opportunity for Brian Robinson. And then Raheem Mostert might be able to play, which will just be more of an impact on Jeff Wilson, who might not have their Dolphins might not have their left tackle with Teron Armstead. Couple notes, J.K. Dobbins returning to practice. Please pick him up where available. Could be a significant difference maker down the stretch. And then Leonard Fournette was seen at practice on Thursday. Remember, the Monday night guys, Leonard Fournette, Alvin Kamara, both listed on the injury report. Kamara dealing with something undisclosed. Who knows what that is? Leonard Fournette, we know, missed last game with a hip injury, but showed up at practice on Thursday, so it might not be great for Rachaad White, who has top 10 upside if, in fact, Fournette does not go. Shifting to a different position now, let's talk about Lamar Jackson, who was hurt again, leaving practice with a quad injury. Was supposed to meet with the media on Wednesday. That did not happen. He was hoping to talk to the media on Thursday or Friday. And so now we have another situation, Heath, where Lamar Jackson is banged up once again. Are you losing a little bit more faith now in him in what should be a good matchup, but it's not necessarily been easy for opposing quarterbacks, but we know this Broncos defense since losing Bradley Chubb has not been the same.
Right. He's not going to fall out of my top 12. He's not going to fall to a place where I would say you should sit him, but I would sit him for Trevor Lawrence. I do have him behind some guys that he's been better than so far this year. I've got Geno Smith ahead of him, and that's kind of surprising. Where it really gets tough is with that group of Kirk Cousins, Derek Carr, Deshaun Watson, Aaron Rodgers, like that group I still have Jackson ahead of, and I think I will leave him ahead as long as he gets a full practice in by Friday.
Any concern with Mark Andrews and Demarcus Robinson for what that's worth for people in deeper leagues?
I mean, with Mark Andrews, I have concern. He's not been what we hoped he would be over the last couple of weeks. He's still been a top 5 tight end over that stretch, so he's a must-start guy. You don't even think about it. Demarcus Robinson, it does not seem like there's much there right now.
All right, let's talk about the other quarterback injuries as we look at the injury board there. The big one would be Justin Fields, who limited in practice once again on Wednesday. I'm sure that'll be the same designation Thursday and Friday. Rodgers did not practice, but he is expected to play. Stafford already expected to be ruled out as the Rams take on the Seahawks. So, Dave, Justin Fields, are you holding out hope that he's going to play this week?
Yes, I think that there's a better chance for him to play this week. We heard the rumblings very early last week that it was unlikely that he was going to play. We haven't quite heard that yet. And this is a game I'm sure the Bears want to win. This might be their Super Bowl, Jamie. They're taking on Green Bay. Maybe their last chance to beat Aaron Rodgers while he's in the Packers uniform. We'll see about that down the line. But if Fields plays, it gives the Bears a chance to win the game. He would easily be a top 10 quarterback for me if he did play.
They did make a transaction to bring in Tim Boyle off the Lions practice squad, but that has more to do, I think, with Trevor Siemian dealing with an oblique injury just to cover themselves in case both Fields and Siemian cannot go. The wide receiver injury board, again, another very lengthy list. And so, got a couple quick questions here. I'll just, give me your quick thoughts on this. So, if Mike Williams is out, Josh Palmer is what?
Borderline number 2 wide receiver with top 12 upside, but obviously a little bit lower floor than we thought, like we saw last week.
Same situation. DeAndre Carter is what?
DeAndre Carter I like better than Palmer. I think he's going to get more targets. At the Raiders, when the Chargers have played the Raiders, they've used short area passing. That's where Carter stepped up. I like him better. I would use him over Palmer.
I would still go Palmer, but certainly Carter's played very well too of the last.
You could start them both. They're both good flex plays.
You're a little bit more optimistic on Cortland Sutton, I know, than I am. So Cortland Sutton without Jerry Jeudy is what?
Without Jerry Jeudy, he's right in that Josh Palmer range, almost exactly the same guy for me, a borderline number 2 wide receiver. Listen, I don't know that he'll be as good in terms of yards as catches as he's been over the last few weeks. He's getting you around 12 to 13 points, but at some point he could also score a touchdown, which shows you a little more upside than he's shown you this year.
Are they benching Russell Wilson? Because that's probably the only way he scores a touchdown. I mean,
well, he dropped a touchdown.
He did drop a
last
touchdown
week.
That wasn't
last
Russell
week.
Wilson's fault.
No, not at all. That was Cortland Sutton's fault.
8 touchdowns on the season, so not exactly the most upside there for a receiver that we had a lot of optimism for. All right, Dave, so Jamar Chase is coming back. We expect him to be what taking on this Chiefs defense?
I could babble about a million different things here, and it's not going to matter. Everybody's going to start Jamar Chase. I've got him ranked as a top 12 wide receiver this week. A little bit worried about him being his old self, where he's going to dominate for 150 yards and 2 touchdowns, but I think you'd still pencil him in from north of 15 PPR points.
And the better Bengals receiver is T. Higgins over Jamar Chase?
I would, for this week, yes, because Higgins has been in the flow lately, and we just don't know where Chase is going to land. I think it's a much safer bet that Higgins hits 15 to 20 PPR points than Chase.
If only because of floor, I think you ranked Higgins over Chase. They both, in a weekly basis, especially against the Chiefs, have number 1 wide receiver overall upside.
Yep, and Higgins has been fantastic without Chase on the field, so hopefully just that continues with Chase back. Not that he was bad with Chase on the field, but you've seen some big performances over the last couple of weeks. The tight end injuries that we're looking at here, the big one is David Njoku. Now, a couple of tight end notes. Dallas Goedert hoping to return in Week 15 when he's eligible. Josh McDaniels saying that they're not sure if Darren Waller will be back when he's eligible to return off IR in Week 14. But Njoku is the one that we got to keep an eye on because he had a big game last week, getting Deshaun Watson back this week. Favorable matchup against the Texans. So any concern with Njoku? He's to the point where you would play maybe Dawson Knox over him tonight or even Hunter Henry.
I wouldn't go that far because I think there are about 17 guys on the waiver wire that have the same I need a touchdown as Dawson Knox and Hunter Henry, so I'll just wait that. I would say if Njoku's unable to go, I'd feel a lot better about Donovan Peoples-Jones as the number 2 in Cleveland.
All right, so good opportunity there for DPJ. Hopefully Mark